Could I start maybe by stating something which is obvious but nevertheless is important? We should have had more Jews living in Norway today than what we have. We have too few. There are many aspects to that, but we lost half of our Jews in the Holocaust. Indeed, this is the darkest chapter of our modern history. The historic sort of context there is important. Norway was under occupation. The deportation and the murders were clearly carried out by the Nazis. I mean, we were under German occupation, but the bringing about of the deportation, the driving of the trucks, the arrest, the rounding up of the Jews, the deportation itself with the Donau that left, that was carried out by Norwegian citizens.
Your Prime Minister, Jens Stoltenberg, made an extraordinary speech last January. He stressed with obvious shame, with pain, with sorrow. He said, "I regret to say that the ideas that led to the Holocaust are still very much alive today." 70 years later, we read that some of our Jews are afraid to be visible as Jews. We cannot accept this in Norway. No one should have to hide their faith. He also added, the goal is the same, to make Norway a safe place for Jews. He could have done what many countries have done. Countries that were occupied or even were allies of Germany. He could have remained silent. He did not. All of these countries now have seen a resurgence of anti-Semitism. And I am very impressed, very struck by what Norway has done, and would like to ask you, how did this come to be?
The results, what came out of the restitution issue was that was a good process, and that we ended at least up with something that was decent, and that we can stand up and present. The reason for that is, first and foremost, I think, that the Jewish community in Oslo were extremely constructive. We're talking about a rather small group of people, well, maybe 1,000 or so, but the way they had organized themselves and the way they, in a way, hang together was something that has always stayed with me. Very impressive. And if these issues were hard for Norway as in general, think about how these issues were for the Holocaust survivors.
Yes.
The first generation, the second generation, in such a small group of people. And this is our one big strength and one big card, is the fact that I think we have developed ways of communicating and ways of relating to the Jewish community. I mean, that actually in a way works, and that took us through the restitution issue and into actually also a constructive sort of attitude and these statements about the past, but also for a way forward.
In June of 2011, there was a survey by the Oslo municipality which found that 33% of Jewish students in Oslo were physically threatened or abused by other high school students. The survey also found that 51% of high school students consider Jew a negative expression, and 60% had heard other students use the term. What does this mean?
Now, if you allow me to say a few words about anti-Semitism, I would strongly argue that it's not part of Norwegian sort of mainstream politics in any way. It never went away. We probably have two versions. You will find a modern sort of form of anti-Semitism, which not necessarily is linked to the anti-Semitism you had from between the two world wars, and that grew in Europe and found its most horrible sort of form in Nazi Germany. These ideas were, of course, in disrepute and were, completely gone from the political scene after the war, but they never completely went away. And then we have had other forms of, probably other forms, which is not necessarily fueled by or linked to the old forms of anti-Semitism, sort of more modern forms of anti-Semitism, and indeed of racism and discrimination in general, that is a more recent sort of phenomenon. We need to fight both. And I give, again, the Jewish community a lot of credit for actually, throughout the years, making sure that we understand that these kind of threats and this kind of thinking actually comes from different sides. And it is not only one thing, sort of a voice from the past or a modern or a modern phenomenon. We have both forms. Now they will come from groups that you could say are very small or not at all mainstream or whatever, but it is as ugly as it is. And I'm happy to note that after one or two of the other surveys that we've had, where, by the way, most of the figures are for Norway are, with one or two exceptions, are more or less on average of what you would find in Europe these days, which is no excuse for us not working very hard on those issues, but we will.
Clearly, this is, at least in part, and probably mostly, an issue of education. It's the education of the young especially, but also the education in general. What can you do? What can you do in terms of education?
This kind of educational work, this kind of things related to the restitution over the liquidation of the economic assets that the Jews held, the kind of speeches you referred to by the prime ministers. Yes. This is not only done, this is not really sort of done just to be nice to the Jewish community. This is a way of vaccinating and maintaining a decent society for all of us. For all of us. We have to do this for all of us, including the Jews, of course, but for everyone, because we don't want to live in a society. And we cannot accept a society where hatred and racism is nourished or present at a level where communities that have made magnificent contributions to Norwegian cultural life, like the social and political life in any aspect you want to mention, that we cannot, in a way, let this happen. This is for the benefit for the whole society. You would never be able to come to a situation where you can say now justice has been done towards the Jewish community of Norway. I would never use such word. We've done our best. Yes. We've done our best.
Ambassador Strømmen, allow me to say that your country is fortunate that you are its ambassador, and that it has in its ambassador someone with a kind of passion for justice, historical justice and contemporary justice that you have. So thank you very much for the chance to talk, and much more importantly, thank you for everything you've done.
Well, I should thank you for taking an interest in this and for the opportunity to address these issues also in America. And this is much more than a question of setting the record straight, as I represent my government on what happened, how we have related to the issues of Holocaust remembrance, the restitution issue on the assets. But this is an ongoing process. This is an ongoing process, and we appreciate highly the work of anyone here in America who takes an interest in these things. There are continuously things that keep coming up. Modern racism and as anti-Semitism, as well as things from the past. Mm-hmm. We will have to continue this conversation at some point.
I hope so.
I want to thank you very much for your interest, and do keep up your good work.
Thank you.